striker. This is quartz. This is another type of quartz. So you want something with a hardness rating of 7. This is chert, and so on the outside you've got calcium carbonate, but if you chip in to the inside, you'll see that it's got chert on the inside. And that's pretty much the same as flint. So here's a piece of flint, and these can be chert and flint can be flint napped into arrowheads. So if you've ever seen an arrowhead, typically they're made either from chert or flint. Now, this is iron pyrite. You'll notice it's got little cubes all over. If you strike this, it's just going to fall apart. It's really too brittle in this form. If you're going to use pyrite, you want it embedded in some sort of quartz so that the cluster will stay together, but you're striking at the pyrite vein that's within the quartz. Not ideal. Very difficult to get it to work, but you can get it to work. So this would be a primitive method where you would combine some sort of striker being a rock that's a hardness rating of 7, so chert, quartz, flint would be ideal. And then you would strike that pyrite vein, and the pyrite, iron pyrite, is gonna throw off a spark. So you would throw that into your tinder, whatever you're going to catch the spark with, and we'll talk about that in just a second. The gold standard is going to be marcasite. Now, with pyrite, you can't just scrape it, right? You actually have to physically strike it, so it is true percussion. Marcasite, you'll see that once you break open a marcasite orb, it has crystals that radiate out from the center. And you can see I've already created an area where I'm dragging that. The advantage of marcasite over pyrite is you can have pure marcasite without it being in a quartz vein. It'll stay together and actually scrape it down that groove that you've made. And that will channel all of those sparks into your tinder. So this is birch chaga. This would be a tinder. It has a chemical compound that takes a spark easy. You would fluff up some of this by scraping it with your knife so that it could take a spark. Or you could scrape it off into a pile and try to throw your spark into it. But this is a cross section of an amadou mushroom. So you can make hats out of this. You can really make it into leather. And it'll take a spark really well. So you can fluff up this area and try to throw your spark in. You can just lay that down. Now in Texas, you want something that's fluffy, like the pith that you saw the other day that took the spark. With the wind blowing, I couldn't hardly even get it out. Anything that has a lot of surface area like cedar bark or this palm fiber here, this came from a Texas sable palm, and that can be found in most palms. Coconut husk, if you need a tropical alternative. Now you can make char cloth, but that is something you would have to carry on your person. You would already have to have a fire. That's more. Once this stuff takes off, it'll just smolder. All right, we got one right there. See it starting to form in that amadou? That'll continue to smolder. Oh, we got one. That one looks like it's going to make too. All right, good. So we got a couple of those. We actually got 2 coals forming. Magnesium with a flint striker on the end. Once I get that pile, I'll show you what I'm going to do. Hit that device. What you want to do is hold your knife still and pull that away, right? So hold it still and then pull it away, and then that'll direct it eventually into that magnesium. And if you hit that magnesium just right, it'll catch on fire. Down here to the coconut husk, even without magnesium, that may be hot enough to catch that coconut husk on fire, so that had no magnesium. So you can see how punky and fluffy that is. I'm gonna fluff that up. Direct those sparks. There we go. So we got one starting to form. And I bet you if we had a little wind, yeah, that's gonna spread like crazy. Let's see. Oh, there, we got one. And that one might stay. Looks fairly big. Yeah, that one's gonna go. We got two actually. We got one up here too. Well, good. So that tells me my little flint striker on my knife, with the right resources, is good enough to throw a spark. Just wanted to test it out because I'd never really tested it out. So this is more modern, but if you had some steel wool with you, it'll take a spark really well. So it's something that you don't have to worry about if it gets wet. It'll take an ember or a spark really good. So my little striker on my knife, it doesn't take much for steel wool to go. So if you had a first aid kit, throw a little steel wool in there. If you carry a striker on your knife, really easy. So look how large that ember is. That's crazy.